Hey everybody, Tony UV, CEO at VERSPRITE. Another interesting week in cybersecurity. We've had some rising attacks in the healthcare sector with additional ransomware to vulnerable healthcare institutions. We've had threat campaigns targeting the educational sector. And of course, like many of you, I've been watching the testimony from Peter Zatko, former security leader at Twitter, with regards to some of the data governance indiscretions by the Twitter organization. So let's dive in on these three key takeaways that I think would be beneficial to kind of factor into your security playbook. Number one is the element of geopolitical risk. Geopolitical risk is one of those themes in which many organizations today, especially multinational ones, are not really taking the time to adequately consider what are some of the causal factors for cybercrime, especially with one of the largest attack vectors that is increasing over time, and that's insider threat. With geopolitical risk, what that term means is that there are political, economic, social ideologies, belief systems that are oftentimes creating factions and influencing how employees behave, how management behaves, and how executives behaves. Anyone that is part of an organization could be influenced by geopolitical interests that they may have within and outside of the organization. So with the Twitter case, recently I was in Europe and I did a video post about one of the employees there was providing intel to the Saudi kingdom about dissidents that are using the platforms, and obviously elevating their privilege access and their need to know to be able to share back to the kingdom on who were these dissidents that were speaking out against the Saudi kingdom. Now, this week we've learned that there's been some accusations by Mudge saying that the Twitter organization has employed Chinese spies within the organization. And in addition to that, there's been, as part of the whole whistleblowing testimony that's been going on this week, there's been some interesting revelations that data access or poor data governance really has been pretty prevalent at Twitter for such a long time. Now, this video post is really not about condemning Twitter or condemning the whistleblower. This is really about a lessons learned. So what are the key takeaways that we have? So going back to geopolitical risk, if you're a multinational organization and you're not factoring in what sort of geopolitical themes may be influencing your employees with respect to the information or products that they may have, then you may need to factor that into your organizational threat model. An organizational threat model, as you may imagine, is a model of threats that could affect your organization and impair its ability to be successful, make money, retain employees, successfully protect intellectual property, or in the case of what's been discussed with Twitter, safeguard information of some of the data subjects that are using the platform. So it's important to really factor in that geopolitical angle into what sort of things could be divisive and could be leveraged by outside threat actors against the organization. Now, number two is on data governance. So Twitter obviously has a plethora of data, whether it be, idle posts on social issues or political activism posts from its users. There's a lot of information that can be used for psyops or psychological warfare, both by nation states on the outside in order to create greater volumes of data around a specific theme that could influence perception. It could influence beliefs. It could influence, anything from decisions on candidates in upcoming elections and so forth. But in the element of data governance, it's about employees having access to that data. And in many instances, there are several organizations that oftentimes don't understand how much privilege and access some of their data administrators, database administrators, system administrators, DevOps engineers have to production data. In addition to that, there is obviously the modern day data exchanges that happen oftentimes with web-enabled technologies that really facilitate for data flows to go easily within trusted domains or trusted boundaries with enterprise protections or hardened network enclaves that go beyond the borders of a securely architected environment outside to third parties or maybe to other departments. So it's very easy to get into data abuse, data neglect, data misuse due to poor access control models, poor trust zones being defined in application threat models, and things of that nature. It's a complicated subject, and there's many ways to really, it's a multifaceted answer to improving data governance. But what's been interesting and the takeaways with the case in front of Congress is such an influential platform that has consumer effects, it has citizen effects, right? Has been reported to have poor data governance with poor controls at multiple different levels. So this is a great lessons learned opportunity so that we all within our own respective organizations can say, do I have the right data access control model? Do I have the right data governance strategy? Do I know where my data is, right? Do I know where my data flows are? So there's a lot of ways, again, to be able to embark on those journeys and find out what the adequate answers are. And the last thing that I thought was really interesting from the remarks made by Mudge were the fact around the ill preparedness of the FTC in regulating very large organizations like Twitter. And this is extremely interesting. Now, many of you out there may know oftentimes I don't really have the best remarks around compliance in general. Oftentimes my biggest beef with compliance is that it's looked upon as the finish line for many security programs and not the starting line. So as many organizations try to hit in their SOC 2, their PCI, their HIPAA compliance, or FedRAMP, FISMA, the alphabet soup is endless, they get comfortable in that is their finish line. And that's just the start. And what's interesting added to that frame of thought is the fact that we have a very prominent security figure for multiple decades within the industry saying that the FTC is really ill prepared to move its muscle against such a large and influential platform and company such as Twitter. Now, that doesn't really speak well in terms of the future of compliance. Oftentimes, we as cybersecurity professionals already know that legal and law and any sort of compliance move years after some systemic problems in cybersecurity. So added to that, the fact that, at least in the United States, there is major government entities that have traditionally been responsible for enforcing penalties, fines, etc., with major retailers in the past where there's been breaches, now find themselves ill prepared because of the prevalence of breaches, because of the nature of lack of security measures that are appropriately being implemented. There is a lot of scapegoating and a lot of opportunities for those large organizations to really get away with poor data governance. So again, those three takeaways, super important to really factor in. This is really not a blame game. I think the takeaway for any type of case when we read about a breach or read about an incident or read about a whistleblowing event is to be able to draw out what are some of the key takeaways that can benefit us as a community and within our own respective organizations. This is Tony UV, CEO at VERSPRITE, signing off. Take care.